सेव किया था ना?
मैं सिर्फ इसलिए गया था क्योंकि उसने मुझे कॉल किया, that's it. But listen तो.
Save it for someone else.
जिंदगी में सेव करना जरूरी है, मगर जब बात पैसों की हो, सिर्फ सेविंग से काम नहीं चलेगा। इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट कीजिए और अपने सेविंग्स को आगे बढ़ने का मौका दीजिए।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
If you talk to opposition politicians these days, you get a sense that something dramatic will happen at the next general election. There's a sort of emerging consensus among them that this is near the end for this government, that Mr. Modi will be defeated at the next general election, that they will come to power. They have an argument to justify this view, but in my own view, it's not really an argument, it's wishful thinking. I'll tell you the argument for what it's worth. The argument is as follows, which is that the BJP doesn't rule most Indian states. Its power is concentrated in a few states. Now, supposing the people of India got together, supposing the opposition got together, and people in all of those states voted jointly, couldn't they get rid of the BJP? This argument is given a sort of arithmetic, a sort of bogus arithmetic logic. It says that the BJP never wins with more than 50% of the vote, right? It wins with about 30-something, 40-something. And that if there was a united opposition, it wouldn't be able to win at all. Let me explain this to you in case you haven't worked this out. The argument is that in a first-past-the-post system, you only have to get more votes than the person who's behind you, right? You don't have to get a majority of the votes. So you can, in theory, win an election in a parliamentary constituency with, say, 30% of the vote. The other 70% may be divided among 5 people, 6 people. And as long as you have the largest number of votes compared to those people, even if it's nowhere near a majority, you'll win. So, say the opposition, the BJP wins because we're all separated, we're all divided. Supposing we get together, supposing the BJP gets 35%, even 40% of the vote, but the other 60% is just us putting up a single candidate, wouldn't the BJP be defeated? Well, actually, no. I think the arithmetic is wrong, and I'll explain that to you. But I also think the idea and the emphasis is wrong. Elections, as Arun Jaitley used to keep saying, are never won on arithmetic. They're won on chemistry. What matters is not how many vote calculations you do, but what the mood of the nation is as you move into the election. If during that period the people of India believe that the BJP is the only party that can give stability and offer India good governance, then they will vote for the BJP. Arithmetic will count for nothing. I don't think the opposition sees this. The opposition still believes that arithmetic is the answer. It's not, and I'll try and explain to you why the arithmetic is actually in the BJP's favor and not in the opposition's favor. It is true that most elections are won by parties that get less than 50% of the vote in the seats that they win. If you look at Mr. Advani and Mr. Vajpayee's BJP, they hardly ever got more than 50% of the vote in any seat. I'm going to quote you figures about the Congress. In 2004, the Congress won only 64 seats with more than 50% of the vote. In 2009, that number actually went down to 43 seats. In all the other seats, it had won because it had the largest number of votes, but there were nowhere near a majority of the votes, nowhere near 50%. So the argument then, and the arguments based on that kind of election, is just unite. You can win. No, not quite. Because whenever there are landslides in India, the party in power, the party that wins, usually gets more than 50% of the vote in a large number of seats. If you look back in history, you will see it's nearly always happened. I'll give you some examples. In 1971, when Mrs. Gandhi won her famous landslide, she won 262 seats with over 50% of the votes cast in each seat. When she was defeated in 1977, when Janta had a landslide, they won 266 seats, again with over 50% of the vote in each seat. In 1984, when Rajiv Gandhi won the biggest landslide in Indian history, he won as many as 293 seats with over 50% of the vote. Mr. Modi has won those kinds of landslides. I don't think we necessarily realize that. If you look at 2014, the BJP won 136 seats with over 50% of the vote. And in 2019, that figure shot up to 224. So even if the opposition had united at the last election and put up a single candidate against the BJP would still have won 224 seats. And it won, another 50, another 60 quite easily. So that argument doesn't hold when it comes to Mr. Modi. Even a united opposition cannot defeat him on the basis of arithmetic. The only way in which he can be defeated is if people see the opposition as offering a more attractive alternative, or if people get fed up of him or fall out of love with him. Is that likely to happen? So far, I don't think it's probable. Remember that Mr. Modi is actually more popular than the BJP. Yes, the BJP will lose seats. It will lose assembly elections. You saw what happened in Karnataka. But somehow, when it comes to parliamentary elections, when it's Mr. Modi who's asking for the votes, it doesn't work that way. Before the last general election, the Congress won Madhya Pradesh. The Congress won Rajasthan. It should have been able to repeat that success in the general election. It did not. In fact, it was wiped out in both those states. What made the difference? Well, the difference was Mr. Modi. People were voting for a government at the center. They were voting for a prime minister. They were voting in a general election. And they voted for the man who they thought would make the best prime minister. The sad reality is, the exception of 1977, every landslide election in India has been presidential in nature. People have voted for an individual. If the opposition believes it can defeat Mr. Modi, then it has to present some kind of alternative. It has to say, we will provide stable government. We are good people. We know how to run governments. But can they? I mean, if you're in Bengal, you may possibly think that Mamata Banerjee makes a great prime minister. But remember, the last time around too, after she'd won the assembly election, she couldn't repeat that success in the parliamentary election. If you live in Tamil Nadu, you might think that Stalin would make a perfect prime minister. But rare is the regional leader who has an all-India stature. They're popular in their own states. Sometimes they're popular to some extent in the region. But there is nobody in the opposition who has any kind of national prominence. There is nobody in the opposition who people can vote for and say, oh, don't worry, he'll give us a stable government. Now, the opposition's response is it doesn't matter. People want coalitions. They believe that coalitions are stable. Do they? Just look at the record of so-called third front governments. That's governments that have been non-BJP or non-Congress. Look at the prime ministers, look at the governors. Morarji Desai, Charan Singh, VP Singh, Chandrasekhar, Deve Gowda, Inder Gujral. What are all these governments led by these people? What do they have in common? Well, basically, that none of them lasted for much longer than a year. There is a view deep in the psyche of the Indian voter that if a government is going to complete a term, it nearly always has to be led by a national party, by something like the Congress or something like the BJP. This is a reality the opposition is not willing to accept. The opposition believes that the Congress is done for. Therefore, you can have a coalition of regional leaders and they can take office at the center. I don't believe they can. I don't think the people of India believe they can. I think the people of India need to be assured that there will be a stable government which will allow India to progress if they vote out Mr. Modi. Now, who will lead such a stable government is open to question. But what is clear is that you cannot really have an opposition alternative to Mr. Modi if you leave the Congress behind. The Congress is the only national party in India Compared to the BJP, it's more national, in fact. So if the Congress is out of this arrangement and various regional satraps say that we want to be Prime Minister, will the people of India buy it? I don't think they will. So therefore, opposition unity might work, not just in terms of arithmetic, which as we've seen is dodgy, but in terms of being able to provide an alternative. But that has to be the full opposition. And the Congress surely has to have the prime role in that, because without the Congress, there is no alternative. Now, the opposition laughs at the Congress, the rest of them, but the BJP doesn't. I think it's very significant that even when the Congress was reduced to double figures, down and out, the BJP never deviated from the attack on the Congress. I don't know how many man-hours, thousands of man-hours were spent working out ways to portray Rahul Gandhi as a pappu, to keep rubbishing him, to keep conveying the impression that he's an entitled, foolish dilettante, that the Congress is worth nothing, that it's a really corrupt party, it'll never come to power. You might have wondered then, why are they wasting so much time in the Congress? The Congress is down in the dumps. Well, they were doing this because they knew that the only way they could ever lose is if there's any kind of alliance that features the Congress. And that's why they've kept at it. It hasn't been enough for the BJP to have Rahul defeated in Amethi. It was important for the BJP that he was disqualified from Parliament, because if he's not even an MP, how can he ever be a Prime Minister? So the BJP knows the kind of danger the Congress poses. I don't think the opposition realizes that. They believe that the Congress is irrelevant. And to be fair, the BJP hasn't had to try very hard to make the Congress appear ridiculous. Just look at the two elections where the Congress was nearly wiped out. In the first one, in 2014, it lost because of its own foolishness, because of the scams during UPA, because of the failure to provide any kind of visible leadership. Manmohan Singh hid at home, never opened his mouth. Mr. Modi came across as this great leader who was going to convert people, going to convince people, going to change India, going to transform India. And the next time around, when I think it should have had a chance, it messed it up because, let's face it, Rahul just fought a really bad campaign. He focused on issues that people didn't care about. He went on with this Chokidar Chor hai stuff, which really had no resonance with the electorate. In fact, it had no resonance even with his own party leaders. Afterwards, when they had been defeated, he bitterly complained that his party did not support him. Well, there's a reason for that. They didn't support him because they didn't agree with him. So the Congress has got itself into this position where people can make fun of it. But has it improved? Have things got better in the last year or so? I would argue they have. I don't think Rahul is anywhere near a perfect leader yet. I don't think Rahul has the stature or the popularity of Narendra Modi. But equally, I don't think he's a joke any longer. I think people are looking at him differently. They are accepting that a lot of what he says makes sense. I think the Congress itself no longer seems so much in disarray. Against the odds, the choice of Kharge as Congress president seems to have worked. The party appears to have a structure that's not based solely on dynasty or the mood the Gandhi children are in that particular day. There are people who believe that the Congress now has an organization and are therefore working hard for that organization. Karnataka was a huge boost for the Congress, and there are two elections coming up which will be crucial. I don't know if the Congress will win in either Rajasthan or Madhya Pradesh. So from all the polls I've seen, they're not badly placed in Madhya Pradesh at least. But it doesn't matter. As long as the Congress can put up a good fight, it can show that it stands up to the BJP, then whether it wins or not, the Congress seems like a contender. So the ideal situation for the opposition, if it wishes to take on the BJP, is to have an alliance that acknowledges the primacy of the Congress. It doesn't have to say Rahul Gandhi is the Prime Ministerial candidate. He himself doesn't seem to want to be one anyhow. But assuming it says we've got together, we're a national opposition, we present an alternative to what has gone on. You've had 10 years of this. Let's try something new. I think they have a chance. But will that happen? I don't know. I think every regional leader dreams of becoming Prime Minister. They believe that if Deve Gowda can become Prime Minister, if Inder Gujral can become Prime Minister, why not me? And as long as you have these unrealistic dreams, Mr. Modi will laugh all the way to South Block. He will know that these people don't really have a chance of defeating him. But the Congress has to work hard. It has to convince the opposition that it can work with them. The opposition leaders have to forget their dreams of being Prime Minister. They have to acknowledge the primacy of the Congress as a national party. And if the opposition does work together, if the Congress is seen as part of any alliance, then yes, there is a chance that they can defeat Mr. Modi. Because ultimately, arithmetic leads you nowhere. It's chemistry that matters. And these guys have to get the right chemical reaction.